But in the context of all this, Australia is being visited at the moment by a World Authority on Learning Disabilities. Professor Helen Irlen is her name. She's the inventor of what's known as the Irlen method, IRLEN. As I understand it, and I'll ask the professor in just a moment, it involves the use of coloured filters, or what have been described as coloured non-optical lenses, to help people with reading and learning difficulties. We're talking here both about children and adults. Tens of thousands of people worldwide have been prescribed the lenses, which have been described as the biggest breakthrough in helping people with learning difficulties in more than 20 years. Professor Irlen is on the line. Helen Irlen, good morning.
Well, good morning to you, Alan.
Welcome to Australia.
Thank you.
What proportion of people, from your experience learning difficulties?
Generally, it's assumed at about 12 to 14%, but in actuality, those are government statistics. It's larger than that.
And what do we mean? I suppose we should define this first. What do we mean by learning difficulties?
Yeah, that's a good question. You can go with the government definition of learning difficulties, but basically you're looking at children who are having difficulty achieving or succeeding. Usually it's a year or 2 years behind.
In learning anything?
Yeah, they can have difficulties in more than just reading. It can be in math or other areas as well.
How hard, therefore, just taking on general learning, how hard is it to help someone with a learning problem?
I think it depends. I think one of the things that I've been talking about for 20 years is the fact that if we don't correctly identify what's happening, these children are going to need continuing remediation, and they may be mislabeled or misidentified. And one thing for me that's really critical is I came originally 20 years ago to Australia and introduced the research that says perception is one of those basic building blocks for reading and learning. That's the brain's ability to accurately process visual information. Yeah. And then gave out the information that there's a method to correct or eliminate perceptually based problems, like you mentioned with the colored overlays and colored filters. We've now lost a whole generation in 20 years because the education department, the government, has done nothing. They've ignored 20 years of research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just should say to my listeners, this is fascinating because this was the early 1980s, and you found that many of the students that you described in your research, said that letters on the page in front of them seemed to move around with the blurry print straining their eyes, and the letters became ghosted. Now, people just regarded you as a bit of a nut.
Yeah, they kind of did, didn't they, 20 years ago?
They did. And so what basically does that mean? That these people have a sensitivity of the visual system to certain frequencies within a certain spectrum?
Yes, and if you're looking at the fact that all visual information is converted into wavelengths of light or color, and that's what the brain has to accurately read or process, and that there are certain of those colors that are creating the distortions and the discomfort. Yeah. And so the brain cannot accurately
So that
process.
When you covered the page of print with a coloured overlay, the whole thing changed for them?
The whole thing immediately changes.
And how did they react suddenly in terms of what was on the paper in front of them when it started to make sense?
You got two reactions. The adults were mad and furious that nobody else has ever asked them these questions or done it before. Or has helped them this way before, because they've been mislabeled as dyslexic, sometimes ADD or ADHD, if they couldn't concentrate because of it.
And yet all you're giving them is coloured, non-optical lenses, like a pair of glasses, really.
Drug-free, non-evasive, and it's something that integrates so easily into the educational system. What I think is so sad is right now, yes, we have Irlen clinics in Sydney and throughout Australia, but only those people that can get help, only those people who hear about it are getting help. I think that's wrong.
I agree with you. That's why I'm talking to you today.
Yeah, I think it needs to be available for everyone.
I agree. So we've got 1.5 million people functionally illiterate in this country.
Yeah.
We're talking about a lot of people who can be helped. So what's your advice to people who might know someone with learning difficulties?
Well, there are two things they can do just to even check it out. I do have a free self-test on my website.
That's www.dyslexiaservices.com.au.
Well, there's the main website, that's the international one, which is www.irlen.com.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah. And they can also call for more information at 97471122.
Got all that. Got that. Helen, good to talk to you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Keep at it. How important is that? We wouldn't have known a thing about it. That's Professor Helen Erlen. Now, you can check her website for that. A World Authority on Learning Difficulties. Does your child fit into that? www.irlen.com.au or call 9747 1122 for any information on the Erlen method. 9747 1122.